The third floor hums like a throat clearing in the dark, the air bloated with a kind of heavy silence, too dense for breath. At night, the world here seems to sink inward. The walls don't just sit around you, they lean, watching, listening. There's a way the light flickers over old tiles that makes even clean floors look stained. And the smell, some old mixture of antiseptic and time, lingers like something forgotten in a locked room. Most of the pediatric wing was shut down years ago. Too few children left. Too much bad history piled up like dusty toys nobody wanted to touch. Now it's just a stretch of hollow rooms and dark windows, a hollow lung breathing nothing. My name's David. I'm 58 years old, and I've worked as a night janitor here for close to 12 years. I used to think the silence was kind, that it left you space to think, to settle yourself. But lately it feels like the silence is a thing waiting to see what you'll do next. I was never meant to stay this long, just a few months back when I needed quick money. But you get stuck in routines. You don't realize you're building until the walls start growing around you. Tonight was the same as every other night. Mop, bucket, squeaky cart, and the stretch of hallway nobody else wanted to touch. The third floor always smelled colder, sharper, somehow wetter than the others, the kind of cold you feel in your bones. I had my usual rhythm, slosh, drag, rinse, slosh, drag, moving steadily down the main hall. That's when I heard it. At first it sounded like a trick of my mind, a soft humming underneath the wheels of my cart, a kind of melody, broken and slow, almost matching the rhythm of my mop as it slid over the tiles. Slosh, hum, drag, hum. It was faint, almost the way old radiators groan when they settle, but after a few minutes it grew clearer, a tune, unmistakable, threaded through the cold. My hand froze mid-stroke, the mop sat heavy in my grip, dripping into a widening puddle. I stood still, holding my breath, listening. It wasn't just a tune, it was a lullaby, her lullaby. The same one I used to hum to my daughter when she was small enough to fit in my arms without squirming. The same one she used to sing back to me, shy and soft, before the world got too heavy for her tiny lungs. There was no radio on this floor, no TVs, no patients, no reason at all for any music to live here anymore. I told myself it was memory playing tricks. I dipped the mop back into the bucket, squeezing out the sound along with the dirty water. I kept working, but the humming followed, a little louder now, weaving through the dark like smoke. Each stroke of the mop seemed to pull it closer, dragging the song up from the floorboards. The notes slurred together, warping into something both tender and wrong, like a music box winding down too slow. I turned a corner toward the old nurse's station. The light above it buzzed and dimmed as I approached, washing everything in an unhealthy yellow. And there, on the counter, right where I usually set my cleaning cloths, sat a child's stuffed rabbit, old, worn, one eye missing. It wasn't there earlier. I knew it. I stood frozen, the mop slipping from my hand and hitting the floor with a wet slap. The lullaby grew louder, swelling in the empty corridor. Lay down your head, the stars are awake, soft, broken, cracked, like old porcelain. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The rabbit's missing eye seemed to stare at me, accusing. A heavy pressure sat on my chest, old grief rising like bile. You see, the thing is, the thing I don't tell people, I wasn't there when my daughter died. I was here. I had begged for extra shifts because the hospital bills were eating me alive. I thought, if I worked hard enough, scrubbed enough floors, pushed hard enough, I could fix it. I fell asleep in a supply closet downstairs during my break, slept right through the call, right through the machine's flatlining, right through her last breath. I was cleaning floors while my daughter's tiny body gave up, And now, here in this hollowed-out wing of forgotten children, the floors were singing her song back to me. I took a shaky step back. The air felt thick, syrupy, suffocating. Was fake, suffocating. The rabbit's head tilted slightly. No wind, no movement, just a slow, imperceptible nod toward the double doors at the end of the hall. I didn't want to look. I couldn't, but I did. Through the cracked window of room 308, I saw a shadow, small, sitting cross-legged on the abandoned hospital bed, humming, swinging tiny legs back and forth. The figure turned, but I didn't see a face, only a hollow space where the memory of a face should be. The mop water around my feet rippled, moving not outward but inward, as if something below the tiles was breathing, pulling, waiting. I backed away, heart hammering against my ribs like fists against a locked door. The humming grew thinner, farther away, but I could still hear it threading through the cracks in the walls, curling around the corners of the floor, like steam. I didn't clean the rest of the third floor that night. I left the mop where it fell, left the rabbit staring at the empty nurse's station, left the song bleeding into the silence behind me. I requested a transfer to a different wing the next day. No one asked why. No one ever asks. Now, when I mop the first floor, or the cafeteria, or the main entrance, I work faster, keeping my head down. But sometimes, in the late hours when my mind slips, I still hear it. That lullaby, soft, broken, calling me back to floors I can never really leave. Some spills can't be cleaned. Some songs you carry, humming, into the grave. The basement hallway stretches out before me, a thin artery pulsing weakly in the sick glow of overhead bulbs. Down here, everything feels closer, heavier, as if the very air is soaked through with the sweat of years long past. The pipes overhead rattle sometimes, leaking cold drips onto the cracked tiles. The walls sweat in the summer, weep in the winter. There's a hum in the foundation, a low, endless throb you stop noticing after a few months. It gets into your ears, into your bones, until you're not sure if you're hearing it from outside or inside your own chest. The storage rooms down here haven't been touched in years. Broken wheelchairs, unused gurneys, boxes of patient records thick with dust and mildew, all locked away and forgotten, a graveyard of memory. My name's Regina, I'm 42, and I've been the night shift cleaner here for a little over 7 years now. I'm not afraid of dark places, never have been. Grew up in a house where the power went out more often than not. Learned to navigate, by instinct. Still, there's a different kind of darkness down here, not the absence of light, but the presence of something else, something patient. When I started, they warned me about the basement, said it was bad luck to mop down there alone. That was fine with me. I wasn't much for ghost stories, but then the flooding happened, a busted pipe 3 weeks back, and now it's my job to keep the place from molding over completely. That night, I was halfway through my rounds when I noticed it. A red streak. It cut across the far end of the hall, just beyond the last storage room. Long and low, thin but deliberate, like someone had dragged a wet brush across the floor. At first, I figured it was paint. The maintenance guys are always patching and fixing, leaving messes behind. I made my way down toward it, pushing my mop bucket with a squeaky wheel. The closer I got, the more wrong it looked. It wasn't paint. It had a thickness to it, a way of catching the light. Blood, old blood, half-dried, darkening at the edges. I stopped, hand tightening around the mop handle. There was no one else scheduled down here tonight. No patients, no staff, just me, the humming pipes, and the slow drip of the ceiling. I scanned the hallway. No footprints, No drag marks leading to or from the streak, just that single deliberate smear across the tile. I swallowed hard, told myself there was a simple explanation, maybe an old spill that resurfaced with the humidity, maybe something else. I dipped the mop, squeezed it tight, and pressed it against the mark. It didn't move, no matter how much I scrubbed. The red stain clung to the floor, like it had been tattooed into the tile. The water in the bucket darkened, swirling like smoke. I worked harder, sweat beading along my hairline, my muscles burning. Still, the mark wouldn't lift. Instead, as I scrubbed, it seemed to grow, stretching outward, branching into thin veins that spiderwebbed across the floor. I stumbled back, breathing hard. The humming grew louder, pulsing deep in my ears. I turned to leave, to run if I had to. That's when I saw the footprints. Small, bare, child-sized. They appeared just a few feet away, leading toward the far storage room. Wet, red, fresh. I froze, a scream clawing its way up my throat but dying before it reached my mouth. The door to storage 17 creaked open a fraction, a sliver of deeper blackness beyond. A breath of cold air rushed past me, carrying the faintest smell, not of blood, but of rot, like spoiled milk and wilted flowers left too long in the heat. I gripped the mop like a weapon, though I knew it would do nothing. The footprints shimmered slightly under the flickering lights, as if still forming. Somewhere deep inside, I knew, whatever made them was still here, waiting. I backed away slowly, heart hammering. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to bolt up the stairs 2 at a time, and never look back. But I couldn't leave the mess. That was the rule. That was always the rule. You leave a mess behind, it follows you. I dipped the mop again, ignoring how my hands trembled, and began to wipe at the tiny prints. Each time I passed the mop over them, the prints seemed to sink deeper into the tile, darkening instead of fading. It was like trying to erase a shadow with your bare hands. Behind me, the storage room door creaked open wider, hinges shrieking. I didn't turn. I didn't look. I kept wiping, breath ragged, the mop squeaking under my shaking hands. The lights overhead buzzed louder, sputtering. In that flickering moment, I caught a glimpse, not in the storage room, but reflected in the widening puddle at my feet. A small figure, crouched low, its face a blur of motion and distortion, skin pale as bone, hands blackened at the fingertips, twitching and clawing at the floor. It wasn't moving toward me, it was moving with me. Every swipe of the mop, it mirrored, scrubbing, scrapping, as if we were trapped together in some silent ritual of cleansing that could never be finished. The realization paralyzed me. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a haunting. It was a routine, a memory so stained into the bones of this place, it couldn't die. A child scrubbing blood from the floor, over and over, trapped forever in the act of trying to undo something that couldn't be undone. Tears blurred my vision. I dropped the mop and stumbled backward, slipping in the water, landing hard on my side. The figure blinked out, gone the moment I hit the ground. Silence swallowed the hallway whole. No humming, no dripping, just me, sprawled out, heart pounding, surrounded by widening ripples of dirty blood-tinged water. I didn't finish my shift that night, didn't even try. I left the mop, the bucket, the red streak, ran up the stairs 2 at a time, half blind with fear. When I came back the next night, the stain was gone. No footprints, no blood, nothing. But I never mopped the basement anymore, no matter what they tell me. Some stains don't lift, some marks aren't made to be cleaned, and some things, once you see them, stain you from the inside out. You carry them, invisible and heavy, for the rest of your life. The South Wing elevator has a smell to it, something not entirely mechanical, not entirely organic, a kind of damp, electric rot, like old wires soaking in stagnant water. Most people don't notice it, but if you've spent enough lonely hours in forgotten corners of this hospital, you start to pick up on the things that don't quite fit. My name's Elijah, I'm 57 years old, and I work maintenance overnight shifts at St. Aurelius. I fix what breaks and silence what howls, or at least, that's what I'm supposed to do. The South Wing was shut down a decade before I ever set foot here. Budget cuts, they said, structural issues. All the patients were moved to the newer buildings, and the old wing was locked away. Supposedly, the elevator though, it never stopped humming. Even after the wing was abandoned, it sat there like a forgotten lung, still breathing faintly. No one used it, and no one was supposed to. Yet every now and then, during the 3 a.m. checks, I'd find the call light blinking, steady and slow, like a pulse, like something was asking to be let out. I always ignored it, logged the malfunction in my clipboard, turned my head, and moved on. But ignoring it didn't make it stop. In fact, it got worse. One night, about 2 months ago, I found the elevator doors slightly ajar, just an inch, just enough. The hallway smelled wrong, wetter than usual, like soil turned after a heavy rain. I could feel the scent coating the back of my throat. A flickering light spilled from inside the shaft, though no bulb should have been working there anymore. I stood in front of it, the stale air brushing my skin, and felt something shift deep in the belly of the building. A sound so low, I felt it more than heard it. Something breathing, or maybe waiting. I told myself it was just pressure changes in the shaft, old systems settling, but part of me knew better. The elevator didn't work, hadn't in years. Still, I reached out, almost without thinking, and pressed the up button. It lit up under my thumb, bright and sharp. Somewhere deep below, gears ground against each other with a wet, sick sound. The elevator groaned like an animal in pain. The doors slid open wider, revealing the car inside, empty. Mostly. I couldn't say what it was at first. A shadow, a trick of the broken lights. But as I peered closer, I saw it. A figure, sitting hunched in the far corner of the elevator car. A patient gown hung off its thin frame, the fabric torn and stained. The head was bowed, the hair stringy and matted, dripping darkly onto the metal floor. It didn't move, didn't flinch, just waited. I stumbled back, heart thudding against my ribs. The doors began to close again, slow and smooth, as if swallowing the scene whole. I should have left it at that. I should have, but something about it gnawed at me. Some part of me whispered that if I left now, I would always wonder what would have happened if I stayed. Curiosity has teeth. I jabbed the open button hard enough to hurt my finger. The doors hesitated, grinding slightly, and opened once more. The figure was gone. The elevator was empty. Only a few wet footprints remained, leading toward the back wall of the car, and then vanishing. The hair on the back of my neck lifted. I didn't step inside. I couldn't. Instead, I stood frozen at the threshold, one foot on cracked tile, the other hovering over darkness. Somewhere below, the elevator cables creaked and shifted. Then I heard it, a whisper, not a voice, exactly, more like the suggestion of one. It threaded its way up the shaft, curling around my ears like smoke. Downstairs it breathed. Come downstairs. I yanked my foot back, and the doors slammed shut, nearly clipping my nose. I staggered away from the elevator, heart hammering, vision swimming. The call light blinked again, and again, and again. Each pulse seemed to tug at something inside me, a hook buried deep, pulling, dragging. I turned and ran, clipboard clattering to the floor behind me. The next morning, when the day staff arrived, the elevator stood still, silent, no hum, no light, just a closed door in a dead hallway. I told my supervisor about the malfunction. He nodded absently and scrawled something on his clipboard. I think he thought I was making it up. Maybe I wish I was, but ever since that night, I've noticed something strange about myself, a change. When I pass by reflective surfaces, windows, polished floors, the black sheen of a monitor, sometimes, for just a split second, I catch a glimpse of something behind me, a hunched figure, head bowed, hair dripping, waiting, watching. The elevator still calls sometimes, in the deepest hours of the night, when the world thins and the past breathes heavy against the walls. I hear the low chime echoing up from the sealed wing. The doors never open for anyone else, only for me, only ever for me. I haven't answered it again, not yet, but I wonder how many more nights I can resist. Curiosity has teeth, and some doors don't want to stay closed forever. The staff lounge always felt wrong after midnight. Not scary, exactly, just too still, like stepping into a painting that no longer remembered who painted it. The buzzing fluorescent lights would sometimes flicker for no reason. The clock above the coffee machine ticked slower than it should, dragging seconds into syrup. The couch cushions sagged a little deeper when no one sat on them, and the mirror, that old cracked thing hanging above the sink, seemed to breathe. My name is Maria. I'm 42 years old, and I work nights as a janitor at Crestwood Psychiatric Hospital. I used to joke that I was the only sane one here. Lately, I don't make that joke anymore. At first, the mirror was just another object to wipe down. It hung there, crooked and dusty, its silver backing peeling at the edges like scabs. No one paid much attention to it. The nurses preferred their little compact mirrors. The orderlies kept their heads down. I only really looked at it during the slow hours, when the halls stretched out long and empty, and the loneliness crept in around the edges of things. One night, I was rinsing out a mop in the lounge sink when I noticed something strange. My reflection didn't move right. I was tired. Sure, too many back-to-back shifts will do that to you, but there was a moment, a breath, where I saw myself standing still, even though I knew I'd just turned my head. It was quick, a flicker, gone as soon as it came. I blamed exhaustion, wiped my hands dry, didn't look again. But over the next few nights, the feeling grew. Whenever I glanced at that mirror, I felt it watching me back, not just reflecting, watching. It got to the point where I'd catch glimpses, even when I wasn't facing it. A flash of movement at the corner of my vision, the soft hiss of breath where there should be none. I tried telling one of the nurses once, Monica, a kind girl with red hair and a nervous laugh. She just smiled tight and said, "Yeah, it's always been weird. Just don't look too long." Simple advice, impossible advice, because the mirror wanted you to look. It pulled at you, subtle, patient. One night, around 2:30 a.m., I made the mistake of giving in. I sat alone on the battered couch, sipping stale coffee, staring into the glass. At first, everything seemed normal. Me, sitting there, circles under my eyes, uniform rumpled. But then my reflection smiled. I swear on my life, I didn't move a muscle. The woman in the mirror lifted her hand and waved at me. Slow, deliberate, friendly. I dropped the cup. It shattered on the linoleum, coffee pooling, dark and sticky like blood. I bolted from the lounge, heart pounding so loud I thought it might tear through my chest. For days after that, I avoided the staff lounge completely. A few co-workers noticed. asked if I was sick, needed time off. I just shook my head, kept moving. Movement is safety, stillness is surrender. But hospitals are full of cycles, patterns. Eventually, everything drags you back. It was a week later when I got stuck. There'd been a code gray, a patient incident, and all the other lounges were locked down. The only place to catch my breath was the South Lounge, the one with the mirror. I thought about just standing in the hallway, waiting it out, but my legs ached, my hands shook, and my throat was raw from the dry hospital air. 5 minutes, I told myself, 5 minutes to rest, then back to work. The mirror was waiting for me. As soon as I stepped inside, I felt it, the heavy drag of its attention. I kept my head down, focused on the cracked vinyl floor, sat on the edge of the couch, like a prisoner awaiting sentence. I could see the mirror's reflection in the polished surface of the coffee table, could see movement. I pressed my palms flat against my knees, trying not to shake. A soft tapping sound started, tap, tap, like fingernails on glass. I didn't look up. Tap, 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 harder now, persistent. I squeezed my eyes shut, counted backward from 10. When I opened them, the room felt smaller, closer. The mirror loomed large, somehow, filling more space than it should, and in its surface, not just one reflection, but many, crowding behind me, figures in hospital gowns, faces I didn't recognize, some grinning too wide, some crying soundlessly, some just staring. Their mouths moved without sound, shaping words I couldn't hear. The tapping grew louder, desperate. My own reflection sat perfectly still among them, head bowed, shoulders trembling. I should have run. Every instinct in me screamed to run, but I was frozen, pinned like a specimen. And then one of the reflections peeled itself away from the mirror. It stepped forward, its bare feet making no sound on the floor, until it stood directly behind me. I felt the air change, colder, denser. A hand brushed my shoulder. I gasped, and the spell broke. I shot up from the couch, heart hammering, stumbling toward the door. When I dared to glance back, just once, the mirror showed an empty room. Just me, no others, no tapping, just silence. I didn't realize until later that my reflection wasn't moving anymore. It just sat there, trapped inside, watching, waiting. Since that night, I cover every mirror at home with blankets, even tiny ones. Compact mirrors, shiny pots, turned off screens, anything that could reflect. I catch glimpses sometimes, a flash in the side of a pot, a smear of movement across a TV screen. It's always her, me, but not me, smiling, waiting. I know, deep down, that one day I'll slip up, catch her gaze too long, and when I do, she'll step out, and I'll be the one trapped inside the glass, screaming with a mouth no one can hear. Until then I keep my head down. I move fast. I don't look back. I don't let myself stay still long enough for the mirror to find me again, because some reflections aren't yours to control. Some mirrors don't give you back what you expect, and some versions of you, they don't want to stay on their side anymore. The laundry chute was older than everything else in the building. Even the new paint couldn't hide the deep scratches clawed into its frame. It reeked of bleach, mildew, and something heavier, something like rusted sorrow. At night, it groaned against the silence, a slow, aching sound, like bones shifting after too long a sleep. It wasn't just the weight of towels and linens tumbling through, it was the weight of years. My name is Daniel. I'm 59 years old, and I'm the night janitor at Mercy Pines Rehabilitation Center. I have been cleaning up after others longer than I care to admit. I used to think some stains just needed more elbow grease. Now I know better. I first noticed the chute acting strange last winter. It started small, linens disappearing, or showing up torn and damp when they shouldn't have been. At first we thought it was the old machinery breaking down. That's what everyone told themselves, anyway. But the feeling you got near the chute wasn't mechanical, it was personal. It watched you. It waited. One night, I was dragging a heavy cart of soiled sheets toward the laundry room. The halls stretched long and empty, fluorescent lights humming overhead. The wheels of the cart squeaked like a broken music box. I remember pausing outside the laundry chute door. The handle was cold, much colder than the metal around it. It burned against my palm. I hesitated, heart kicking in my ribs, before swinging it open. Darkness yawned back at me. The scent of bleach was thick, but underneath it, a coppery tang that made my stomach turn. I shoved the linens in fast, eager to be done, but just as I turned away, I heard it, a soft, wet slither, something brushing against the inside of the chute. Slow, purposeful. I froze, every muscle locking tight. Another sound followed, a faint thud, like something catching itself mid-fall. There shouldn't have been anything still moving inside. The chute only carried linens, nothing living. At least that's what I told myself, as I walked away faster than I wanted to admit. But after that night, I started noticing things. Sheets coming back, stained with handprints, faint, as if someone had tried to claw their way free. Laundry bags would arrive ripped open, their contents spilling like intestines across the floor. Sometimes, the carts would be knocked over when no one was nearby, sheets strewn like broken bodies. I stopped using the chute whenever I could, started pushing the laundry all the way down to the basement myself. A heavy, sweaty job, but safer somehow. At least there I could see the walls, the floors, the empty corners. At least there, the darkness didn't move. But you can't avoid your duties forever. One night, just before Christmas, the building was short-staffed. Emergency protocols meant the chute had to be cleared every 2 hours. No exceptions. That meant me, alone. Third floor. The chute door groaned as I opened it. A gust of cold air rushed out, smelling sharp and metallic. It carried a whisper, not words, just the feeling of them. I shook it off, told myself it was my imagination. I shoved the first bag in. It vanished into the dark with a wet sucking sound, like dropping something into thick mud. I reached for the second bag, and then I heard it. A voice, soft, pleading. Please help me. I stiffened, the bag slipping from my fingers. I turned, half expecting to see a patient who'd wandered from their room, but the hallway was empty. The voice had come from inside the chute. I backed away slowly, told myself it was just the echo of the building, the way old places sometimes groan and settle in the night. I almost made it to the end of the hall when I heard it again, stronger this time. Don't leave me. I ran, pushed the cart ahead of me so hard. It slammed into the elevator doors. I didn't care. I needed to put distance between myself and that thing, whatever it was. The next morning, I asked the day janitor, Henry, if he'd ever heard anything strange by the chute. He gave me a long, slow look, told me about the fire, 20 years ago, before it was a rehab center. Mercy Pines had been a children's convalescent hospital, mostly burn victims, polio cases. One night, a short circuit in the basement laundry ignited a fire that crawled up through the old linen chute. The upper floors were evacuated. Most of the staff made it out, but some of the children, the ones bedridden, trapped in iron lungs, they didn't. The fire raced up the chute like a living thing. They said you could hear the screams echoing down the metal shaft. long after the flames died. The hospital shut down for years. Then someone bought it cheap, slapped on some new paint, renamed it Mercy Pines, as if mercy could erase what happened. Henry finished his story with a shrug. Sometimes buildings remember. That night, I dreamt of the chute, saw it stretch downward forever. A yawning, hungry throat, saw tiny hands reaching up, clawing. Desperate, I woke soaked in sweat, took the day off, considered quitting altogether. But money is a stubborn chain. You learn to live with the things that gnaw at you. The next time I approached the chute, I did it different. I didn't shove the bags in. I didn't turn my back. I stood there, one hand resting against the cold metal, and whispered, "I'm sorry." The building seemed to exhale, a soft hiss through the vents. For the first time in weeks, the chute was silent. No whispers, no slithering, just emptiness. I kept my hand there for a while, felt the thrum of old sorrow, deep and constant, like a second heartbeat. When I finally dropped the linens, they slid away clean. No stains, no claw marks, just gone. I don't fool myself into thinking I fixed anything. The chute still groans sometimes at night, still carries the faint smell of burning cloth and lost voices. But now, when I walk past it, I bow my head, offer a quiet prayer to no one in particular, because some burdens can't be cleaned away. Some stains are stitched into the bones of a place. You don't fight them, you don't ignore them, you carry them, and you try, if you're lucky, to carry them with a little grace.